100 years ago, Sweden recognized Hungary, and our two countries established diplomatic relations. Sweden did this together with our fellow Scandinavian countries, Denmark and Norway, as a sign of Nordic cooperation. Of course, this was not the beginning of contacts between Swedes and Hungarians. There have been many, many encounters over the last 1,000 years. But this was a new chapter for us. And over these 100 years, we have had many good examples of good and important cooperation. Some have been more on the humanitarian side, like the important rescue operations by Raoul Wallenberg in 1944-1945, when he rescued thousands of Hungarian Jews. And in 1956, when many Hungarians after the revolution arrived in Sweden, afterwards contributing a lot to Sweden, for which we are extremely grateful. And over the years, much of practical cooperation has developed between companies in field of research and development with students and so on. But the most important element, I think, is that after the fall of communism 30 years ago, we are both members of the European Union, where we work closely together as partners, and where we have a responsibility to build a future for the next generations, a sustainable, prosperous future based on our shared values. This is something we can only do together. This is something we must do together.
Hello, my name is István Mohácsi. I was Hungarian Ambassador to Sweden between 1996 and 2000. Together with my wife, we enjoyed every minute of our stay in Sweden and in Stockholm, both from a professional and a personal point of view. We traveled a lot in the country, got to know the people, the landscape, the culture, the economy, and so on. A very interesting and important feature of my stay was the preparation for the possibility of leasing Gripen planes from the Wallenberg Group. There was no decision during my stay, it happened after that, but the preparatory works for the offset deal was a very interesting and important part of my job. Another interesting feature which I would mention here is the story of Stockholm's candidacy for the 2004 Olympics. The country was divided on that. There were people who were enthusiastic. After all, Stockholm already organized an Olympic Games in 1912. But the other part of the country was against it because they were afraid of the costs, the possible pollution, the number of tourists, and so on. Eventually, Stockholm as a candidate city lost, and the games were awarded to Athens. But it was very impressive for me and interesting how the country and the city took this decision. They congratulated Athens. There were no acrimonies, no debates, no accusation, no counter-arguments. They accepted the decision and prepared the country for a successful participation in the 2004 Games. It impressed me very much as an elegant way of accepting decisions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is László Szőke. I was the ambassador of the Republic of Hungary in Stockholm from 2000 to 2005. I have unforgettable memories from the years I spent in Sweden. Many of them are political, as it was the time when Hungary, with meaningful support from the Nordic countries, joined the European Union, and when we also reached a deal with the Swedish side on leasing Gripen fighters to us, so that they could become, as we put it, the wings of our nation. Moreover, I had the pleasure to be present when Imre Kertész received the Nobel Prize in Literature, and I was honored to accompany Crown Princess Victoria during her very first official visit abroad to Budapest. And yet, let me speak now about a different type of experience that I brought home from Sweden. I got it in May 2003, when, together with my wife, we decided to go for a short holiday in the Dalarna region. On the first day, we spent 2 hours of pure enjoyment in the home of Carl and Karin Larsson, the house in the sun at Sundborn. We then descended into the depth of the Falun copper mine and were truly overwhelmed by its sullen grandeur. And late in the afternoon, we ended up in the village of Tällberg, where we were met by the friendly staff of a small inn, a former farmstead. Then we decided to go for a short walk before dinner, and it was then that the magic happened. We were just wandering in the beautiful sunset, passing by little red cottages and barns, surrounded by meadows in many shades of green. Crystal clear skies, cool breeze from the west, and complete quiet, save for the occasional shrieks of the seagulls. The air, so crisp one could easily bite into it. And looking down from the hillside, we saw the brightly glistening waves of the dark blue lake under us. We were alone, on the edge of the wilderness, enjoying unhindered vistas, surrounded by peace, harmony, beauty, and cleanliness. For us it was and will forever remain an impression as Swedish as it gets, the essence, the epitome of Swedishness. Still under the spell of the nature, we went back to our neat little hotel, and there we had another surprise, to put it simply, the greatest meal of our lives. And in addition, after dessert, the young waitress came back to us with a request. Having heard us talking, she recognized the language we were speaking and handed over her cell phone and asked us to greet her grandmother, who had come to Sweden many decades earlier as a very small and very hungry girl from war-torn Hungary. It was so nice to chat with the old lady. And then we withdrew to our room, and to round off the most Swedish of all days for us, we watched on TV, what else? Another installment of Melodifestivalen. Dear friends, that was the mundane but very personal experience of a single day that converted me from a happy guest of Sweden into a devoted friend of your country. I wish you all the best.
Hello, my name is Gabor Szentiványi, and I served in Stockholm as ambassador between June 2009 and June 2013. This was during the Fredrik Reinfeldt government, when the foreign minister was Carl Bildt. During this period, bilateral relations between Sweden and Hungary progressed quite well. Trade turnover reached some 1.6 billion euros, and the number of nights spent by Swedish tourists in Hungary reached about 250,000, which is a very significant, large number. The special highlights of that time I spent in Stockholm were the 2 presidencies of the European Union. First, in 2009, Sweden served as the presidency of the European Union, followed by Hungary in 2011. Also in 2011 and 12, better to say, Hungary, or the Hungarian embassy, served as the so-called contact point embassy for NATO, meaning that we liaisoned between NATO and the Swedish defense establishment, also provided information to the general public, and facilitated, among other things, the visit of the Secretary General to Stockholm. 2012 was also the year when we extended the so-called Gripen contract, meaning that Hungary has signed an extended agreement to use the Gripens as the backbone of its air force for another 14 years, thereby creating a very strong basis for bilateral defense relations and defense connections relationship was always very important between Hungary and Sweden. Also 2012 was the year when we celebrated, both in Budapest and in Stockholm, the centenary of the birth of Raoul Wallenberg. This meant that we organized different seminars, exhibitions, involved a lot of people, and commemorated the very noble deeds of this great Swedish man, politician, diplomat. If I have to mention perhaps one highlight, which was very special to me, it was the announcement of the Hungarian EU presidency in December 2010 on the stage of the Concert Huset. This is the place where the Nobel Prize is handed over every year. And the occasion was the performance of the 100-person Hungarian gypsy band. Why this was so special? Not only because there were 100 gypsy musicians on one stage, but also because one of the priorities of the Hungarian presidency was to create a European framework agreement on Roma rights. And it couldn't be a better, a more appropriate opportunity or an event than the performance of the 100-man Roma band, gypsy band, to announce this priority to the Swedish public and the Swedish officials. Thank you.
Hej alla vänner i Sverige. Trevligt att ses igen även om endast virtuellt. Mitt namn är Lilla Makai. I samband med 100-årsjubileet har jag blivit ombedd att dela med mig av några av mina minnen som Ungersk ambassadör i Stockholm mellan 2013 och 2017. Det var ganska hektiska tider fyllda av spänningar, kriser och utmaningar runt om i världen, inte minst i Europa. Vi hade en del diskussioner om EU-samarbetet, hanteringen av flyktingkrisen och så vidare. Ibland var det inte alls lätt för oss på ambassaden att nå ut till den svenska publiken med våra budskap. Därför satsade vi extra mycket på främjande arbetet. Vi ville visa upp Ungerns positiva sidor som ett gästfritt land, ett land med gammal och rik kultur, gamla traditioner, mycket händelserik historia, men också väldigt bra investering och studiemöjligheter. Förutom den klassiska främjande verksamheten som mat- och vinprovningar, informationsmöten om investerings- och studiemöjligheter, turism och badkultur och sånt, arrangerade vi också en rad evenemang vars syfte var att lyfta fram mindre kända sidor av Ungerns historia och kultur. Dessa kvällsevenemang oftast kombinerade någon utställning med föreläsning på ett visst tema. De alltid åtföljdes av någon liten mottagning där deltagarna fick smaka på ungersk mat och vin. Jag har kvar väldigt klara minnen från dessa event. Jag minns till exempel en utställning om den världsberömde ungerska krigsfotografen Robert Kapas liv. Och sen hade vi en annan utställning och föreläsning om Centraleuropas judiska kulturarv och förintelsen. Om livet av läkaren Ignaz Semmelweis, kvinnornas räddare, som introducerade handtvättningen i gynekologernas praxis under andra hälften av 1800-talet. Och därmed blev han kvinnornas räddare. Så efter pandemin förstår vi naturligtvis och uppskattar ännu mer hans innovation. Vi hade en filmvisning om den sista ungerska krigsfången som hittades på ett äldreboende i Ryssland 50 år efter det andra världskrigets slut. Vi tog upp känsliga frågor också. Vi hade också en filmvisning och en föreläsning om de systematiska våldtäkterna mot kvinnor i Ungern i andra världskrigets slutskede. Den absoluta höjdpunkten var 60-årsjubileet av Ungernrevolten 1956. Vi anordnade en jättestor fotoutställning mitt i stan på Nybroplan som invigdes av högsatta representanter för såväl Sverige som Ungern i närvaro av representanterna, de som fortfarande fanns i liv, av de ungrare som kommit till Sverige som flyktingar efter att revolten krossats. Så det var väldigt minnesvärda moment under min tid i Stockholm som jag aldrig ska glömma.
I feel honored and privileged to be Ambassador of Hungary in Sweden when we celebrate the centenary of the Hungarian-Swedish diplomatic relations. Exactly 100 years ago, on the 25th of May 1921, the first ever Hungarian ambassador presented its credential to the King of Sweden. Round anniversaries, like a centenary, are excellent occasions to stop for a moment and cherish all positive achievements we have made together in our bilateral relations or on the international scene. We have close political and trade ties, good cooperation in security and defense, vivid exchange between our cultural and scientific actors, and friendship between our citizens. Luckily, today, we live in a free world in both countries. We belong to the same strong family of democracies. We are both strong members of the European Union, where we work for peace and security, protecting the health and prosperity of our people. I've been in Sweden for 4 years. Besides working a lot, I had the chance to experience what a beautiful country Sweden is. I'm delighted that I had opportunity to visit so many nice places, from Smögen to Kiruna, from Falun to Kalmar or Helsingborg. I've learned a lot about Sweden, about history and tradition, about literature and art, about the fact how important is midsummer in Sweden, or the tradition of Yule board, or simply the fact that the flagpole is an essential part of each stuga. All this will stay with me for life. I'm also convinced that there are so many things in common in Sweden and in Hungary, in Hungarians and Swedish people. We have to use all the opportunities to know even better each other. I encourage all Swedish people to come and visit Hungary, and I also highly recommend to the Hungarians to come and see Sweden. Relations between two states are about people, about your business, your cultural project, your scientific cooperation, your initiative. I reassure you that the Embassy of Hungary will be here to assist you. I wish Sweden and Hungary even stronger bonds in the next 100 years.